looks good. Good. Mr. Chapa, we're good, sir?
Let's go.
I call this meeting to order, February 4, 2019, at 6 p.m. Roll call. Rogelio Hernandez, present. Cesar Rodriguez.
Present.
Ezequiel Ortiz.
Present.
Loy Loya.
Present.
Ivan Sandoval, absent. Adolfo Arriaga.
Present.
And Homer Tijerina, absent. Invocation.
Who we have? Mr. Arlo?
Sir.
Good evening. Ms. Vargas, Father God, we thank you today. We thank you for allowing us to be here. And Lord, I just pray that as decisions are made today for the best interest of our citizens, I pray they will bless them. That every single thing that is shared today, every project that is coming or it's pending, Father, I pray you'll be with them, Father. And I thank you because I know that every single thing that's being done today is to benefit our residents, that's our taxpayers. And Father, we just thank you for allowing us to be those people that will serve, those people that will be able to do what is right for our community. Again, we thank you in the name of Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you.
Pledge of allegiance.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're gonna, item number 2, public hearing for amendment to water and wastewater rates.
Mr. President, members of the board, we're here to open a public hearing. We need a motion to do that before we can go ahead and...
Okay, I need a motion to open up.
So move.
Motion by Mr. Ortiz, second by Mr. Loya. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Open at 6:03.
Mr. President, this item was published in the newspaper.
Okay.
So the public's been informed of this public hearing for their opportunity to be present and share their thoughts or opinions with this board. And at the same time, as board members, you're able to discuss and share your thoughts on this as well.
Anybody that we?
Just to preface everything, as we, we were having this public hearing and it was first initiated in regards to the fact that we do have a sewer project that we're completing. So a rate study needed to be done so that the water developer on board would have an indication of what the sewer rates would be for the pond use collection system, which hopefully will be online late this summer. As a result of that, we're negotiating, and once you selected Mr. Snowden from CapEx to perform it, we asked you to do water as well because the water rate study hadn't been done in a while. It was going to be more informational for us and to give us an indication of where we're at. So as a result of that, we went ahead and included to have a water and a wastewater rate study done for the district to get an overall perspective of the condition of the district. So that is where we're at, and I'll go ahead and leave it up to you to continue the public hearing. Jeff is here.
Any comments?
Do you like for him to start on his study first, and then if there's any public input?
I think you can start first, and then we'll see if anybody wants to have any comments. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, members of the board. Glad to be of service. Jeff Snowden with CapEx Consulting. Just as a recap before I start the presentation, I provided preliminary recommendations several months ago, and the direction of the board, I have lowered those recommendations significantly, especially year one, to the benefit of your ratepayers, and you'll see that your cash flows are still sufficient to pay your operations and debt service, but we're really not recommending any more than the bare minimum, very modest rate increases to provide the revenue recovery you need to pay your operations, and that's it. And also to pay the debt service that you've currently incurred. What I did to perform this study is I spent time mining your Encode billing system, looked through all of your data, not only for your current customers that you bill, but also you provide a service to several cities around you and systems where you bill through Encode for their service. You read the meters for a fee, and that data goes in the system. And so I look at those consumption trends surrounding you, as well as what the the customers that you bill revenue to in order to make determinations on average consumption and growth rates, et cetera. Work with your financial advisors on your debt. Look at your audited financials, all the above, to give you a good product. This is your average annual growth rate, and I want to point out a couple of things that was just pointed out. I want to explain this. The total numbers here are actually higher than if you add the subcategories. And the reason is I've made this to where it balances to your Encode billing system. But I hid the customer classes that you don't actually provide service to, because you've got 85% commercial, 85% residential, Penitas sewer, Penitas sewer commercial, residential. All of that you're billing for, but those aren't revenue sources for your system. So for that reason, they're reflected in the total. So if someone asks me, why is this total here? Well, it foots right back to Encode for every month that I studied. But I'm only depicting the customers that you provide service to and bill to, because that's ultimately what we're trying to do, is generate revenue to pay expenses. This is your summary of revenues and expenditures. I went from 2012 through 2018 based on your budgets. And what I want to point out here is your revenues are growing by about 3% per year. Your expenses are growing by about 5% per year. And we need to be cognizant of that and make sure that those lines never cross. So revenues are always slightly ahead of expenses. By the way, you can see water distribution is one of the big growers in your expenses. Sewer plants as well, on an average annual basis. But all in, you're at 5% growth on expenses, 3% on revenues. This is a screenshot of all of your debt, including the very bottom, the Series 2019 is the $5 million that you've proposed to borrow in the next few months. So you can see that as of the end of fiscal year 18, the system had $31.4 million in total debt, of which $20 million was allocated to water, $11 million was allocated to sewer. And I'm going to stop just for a second on the sewer and point out to you, that $11 million that's allocated to sewer, you're repaying that even though all of your customers that are coming online from Palmview are not here yet. Your system has already borne the brunt of all that debt service. That's $600,000 a year that you're paying for those customers that are not paying in revenue yet. And so my plan that I'm presenting will allow them to pay in and pay their full cost of service, but because existing customers are already paying that debt in a manner they are subsidizing those new customers, it gives us the ability over time to eliminate the subsidy and not result in rate shock and not lower rates for existing customers. And that's what I'm proposing tonight. Is there any questions on that? That's a key concept in my rate plan. This is just a quick summary of all of your debt service, how much your annual payments are each year. And you can see that when you fully disperse the $5 million, right now you're at 2.2 million a year, going to 2.4. You're headed toward 2.6 million a year in annual payments. That will be your new normal, and that'll begin in 2021, and at this point go through 2034. So that's what we have to brace the system for. $2.6 million every year in debt service. Now this is a screen that shows you how your system right now, among your customer classes, who subsidizes and who receives a subsidy. In the case of residential, this is not uncommon for a system where they provide 75% of the revenue, but use 81% of the water. So they receive a slight subsidy. And that's by design. It's actually very commonplace for commercial to subsidize residential. Why? Well, commercial customers can write off in their taxes the cost of water, sewer, utilities, right? So they have an advantage there. So it's not uncommon for commercial to be slightly subsidized. And in this case, you can see commercial pays 13% of the revenue into the system and uses 9% of the water. So I'm proposing for that subsidy to drop very slightly over the next 5 years, but not to a significant degree. Interestingly, I just want to go back. Schools, 7.4% of the revenue, 6.1% of the consumption. They're helping with the residential subsidy. So this is a depiction at 10,000 gallons of combined water sewer service on where you are compared to these are 22 cities in the valley. And you can see you've got your lifeline at 56.97. I'm sorry, let me try that again. Okay, that's your average, okay. Average is 56.97, your lifeline's at 63.77, and then you've got a 72.97 for the fully loaded combined rate. Okay, what does average represent, 56.97? That's the actual consumption of your average commercial, of your average customer. It's not 10,000 gallons. Your average residential customer is using less than 10,000 gallons. So that's what that 56.97. If you took a poll of all of your residential customers and asked them how much they pay on average for water sewer, it's $56.97. That puts you on the lower end of the peer group. And the rest of the numbers are based solely on 10,000 gallons of consumption. This is a very busy slide, but this just shows you the key metrics for both water and sewer, for wastewater, for water and sewer for residential. And what you can see here is average consumption. You're dropping slightly by about 1% a year. In 2013, average residential was using 8,896 gallons per month. Last year they used 8,500. So people over time, they fix their leaking fixtures, they use less water, they conserve by nature, and we have to build that into the model. This is your commercial. And you can see here, as I mentioned earlier, we have a higher commercial rate. This is at 50,000 gallons. You're at $430.91, much higher than the peer group average of $296. So when I recommend commercial rates tonight, I'm going to be aware of this, and I'm going to try to escalate them very slowly so that you can remain competitive here in Agua for commercial water. The same, not to the degree, but for commercial, they're also conserving over time. In 2013, they used 16,830 gallons per month. Last year, they used 16,007. Very slight decline. We need to prepare for that in our modeling to make sure that they don't react by conserving more water than the rates raising revenue. And we've done that. This is your forecast cash flow under current rates. And what I want to show you here is that even under the current rates, based on the growth that I'm forecasting, your cash flows are sufficient. You don't run negative until 2023 when you're in a $50,000 deficit. So we have some ability right now under the current rates and current growth. We've got flexibility that most of my clients don't have. You're generating revenue sufficient, but if we're planners and we're managers of the system, we have to look ahead and make sure that your rates are sufficient for additional expenses, additional debt service, all the plans and projects that your team has been briefing you on over the last several months. So this is my proposed rate for residential. This is for your 14,407 residential water customers that each use a little under 8,000 gallons per month. And what I'm recommending is a two-tier increase. On their minimum charge, and again, it's based on the size of the meter, minimum charge goes up by about 1.4% per year. On the volumetric side, per 1,000 gallon charge, those go up on the, let me see, up to 15,000 gallons, or 20,000 gallons, it goes up by 3% a year, and beyond 20,000 by 1.5%. I'm going to give you the net impact on your customer's monthly bill in a slide or two ahead. But that's the detail. Now this is residential wastewater, and this is, we've had some discussions on residential wastewater. You've got 1,325 accounts, using 5,700 gallons of consumption. That's based on the winter average. That's how you bill your sewer. So winter average is the average of December, January, February. And what I'm proposing here, currently they pay $20.84. I'm proposing that go up by 71 cents this year for the average residential customer. Thereafter, I'm proposing that go up by $1.19 a year, each year for the remaining 4 years. So that means that a $20.84 bill becomes $21.55 when these rates become effective. The following year to $22.74, and in the end, you're at $26.31, which will put Agua SUD among the lowest wastewater providers in the valley, even after the 5-year transition.
Can you repeat that again, please?
Yes. So what I'm proposing on your wastewater rates for residential customers is a 71 penny increase on the, over the current bill. $20.84 becomes $21.55. Thereafter, it would go up $1.19 a year for the following 4 years, to where in the end, a sewer bill on average is $26.31, which would be amongst the lowest in the entire Rio Grande Valley for sewer, for residential.
Nice.
You've already got fantastically low sewer bill, sewer rate structure. Why is that? Well, you have a low cost of service. Your expenses are low and you don't have a tremendous amount of debt. In order to fund new projects and pay for escalating expenses, this is what you need to get there over the next 5 years. This is an average annual increase, by the way. If you took an average over the 5 years, we're asking your customers to pay $1.09 more a year. 71 cents year 1, $1.19 year 2 through 5.
Mr. Snowden,
Yes, sir.
I was asking Eddie in the back, what about our Lifeline customers? Will they be affected by this?
They will, and I have them on the table below here. So it's a much more modest increase. On the Lifeline sewer customer, I'm recommending that their rate go up, their average bill go up by 31 cents.
31 cents.
Yes. As opposed to 71 cents for non-Lifeline. So they're
Lifeline, 31 cents, got that.
$20.64. What was that?
No, I'm explaining over here.
Their $20.64 bill would increase to $20.84 bill would increase to $21.15.
Okay.
31 pennies if these rates are approved.
Yes, sir.
Thereafter, their average increase would be about $1.29 each year, to where in the end, they would be at $26.31.
Is there any way on those Lifeline that we can somehow grandfather or lock the rates in for the existing Lifeline users?
See,
And new ones that are added from here on out, you know, they go to the new rates or,
we could do that, and it's not gonna make a huge difference if you can, we only have 79 Lifeline sewer accounts, so it's a negligible amount of your revenue, so you've got freedom to make those choices with them. It's not
That's a
gonna
good idea.
impact our rate
Grandfather
plan
demand.
Yeah,
materially.
and then from now on, there'll be
The new
the new
customer.
customers would.
Grandfather.
You can do that, it depends on encode.
The system.
What you'll have to do is create a Lifeline 1 and a Lifeline 2.
They're separate.
Yeah, you can be,
Oh, it's a separate bracket.
Yeah, we can
Yeah.
create a modified revenue
that's,
codes.
yeah. It's gonna be a new customer class, but it'll be Lifeline,
Son los que ya
probably
tienen
Lifeline
within set
post
the
Se van a
rate.
quedar ese rate.
Whatever the
Only the
rate
new ones get
we
affected.
decide
They're
to
like
implement the
over,
new rate, the
people over
accounts
65.
before
Sí, ya.
And ese program.
Son los que están en el programa.
That's why I was asking if it was gonna affect them, porque como que no.
Sí.
so we'll make that note as an action item to grandfather, and again, it's only 79 accounts, so there's
Yeah.
flexibility there.
It's good.
Now, this is a slide I wanna focus on. This is your existing versus Palmview residential sewer. And it's been rightly pointed out that the Palmview sewer customers have got an extra cost of service that we have to recover through the rates. What is that cost of service? Well, it's the debt that you have incurred to provide the infrastructure for them specifically. So you've got about 10.9 million in debt that you've been paying since 2015 for these customers. These customers are not paying into the system. What does that mean? All the other customers have been subsidizing these Palmview customers. And they will until these folks come online, which we're estimating there's 1,771 accounts that will come online in the next 2 years. We think they'll come on sooner, but I'm gonna be conservative and assume half of the 1771 in 19 and half in 2020. So I had a conversation with Water Development Board regarding these rates, and their question was, why aren't the rates higher for Palmview? And my answer to that was, if we wanted Palmview to fully pay their cost of service and receive no subsidy, the decision back in 2015 should have been to structure your 10.9 million to where there was no debt service until these customers came online and started paying. But that wasn't the decision. The decision was, as in 2015, here's your bill, here's your debt service, and everyone else absorbed that. So now here we are in 2019, and we've got, I'm gonna round it up because I think it's fair to say, you're gonna have 2,000 new customers come online. Well, what are our options? We can look backward and try to lower everyone else's rate and impose a very high rate, artificially high rate on these new customers, or we can phase them in over time and work with the existing rates, raise those at a slower pace, not rate shock any customers, and in the end, by 2023, everybody is paying their fully loaded share of the sewer. And that's what I'm recommending.
That sounds good.
And that's a good point, cause, we were asked by the Texas Water Development Board how our rates were gonna be so low. And they were saying, no, it should be around 60-some to 70-some dollars. I go, no, it was actually 60 to 80. And we told them, well, the reason is they're a lot lower now, cause in the original plans, it was 1,500 customers. We're adding basically another 2,000. And that's something that they didn't know, and I was like, but you're at every meeting, you hear our conference calls, and, but, they were shocked into hear that that's why our rates are so low.
Yeah, I just got a call from them last Thursday, and they asked for the study where we're basing our forecast from, and so, Chris Vela, I forget the First Southwest. He prepared a study where we get our numbers from. So I emailed that to the Water Development Board, and I think we all consider those numbers low. It assumes 1,771 new residential accounts and 0 commercial industrial. Mr. Sines can tell you that you've got public schools lined up, commercial entities. Milo can tell you about the new subdivisions that he's permitted that are waiting. So we've got a much more of a demand and much more of a flow. So the good news is you're gonna have more revenue than we ever anticipated, which means you can have lower rate. On the flip side, your obligation to mission is to pay a treatment fee based on per 1,000 gallons discharged. You're gonna have more gallons discharged, that's built into the model. How does it all work out in the end? You're in a position to impose lower rates and still pay the cost of service.
That's good.
So if you look at residential, existing customers, you got 1,325 of them. And then you have Palmview, and I don't have the number of accounts, and I'm assuming their average consumption is gonna be the same as your existing. But what do we end up with? In the end, Palmview is at $28.63 a month. Existing customers are at $26.31. That's about $2.30 less a month for your existing customers. Why? Because there's no doubt Palmview's infrastructure is being subsidized right now. It had to be because you started paying the debt in 2015. But we can eliminate that. I'm proposing that we eliminate that by 2023. This is the impact of your proposed residential water and wastewater rate increases. And I'm gonna focus on the 5 and the 10,000 gallons. You can see on top that the average customer uses 8,100 gallons. So we'll do an average of 5 and 10. But what I'm proposing is that for a 5,000 gallon customer, right now their average bill is $48.53. It would go up to $49.50, that's 97 cents in year 1. Thereafter, it would go up by on average of about $1.88, to where in the end, 5,000 gallons would cost you $57.05 a month in 2023. And I've got the peer group analysis, assuming everyone else in the valley raises their rates by 3% a year up to 2023, which is a low number. You're one of the best values in the valley under these rates. That's at 5,000 gallons. 10,000 gallon user, $72.97 is the current bill. They would go up by $1.02 from the date effective of this first rate increase, and thereafter by $2.86 on average. In the end, they would be at $85.48. What's the average bill, which is 8,000 gallons? Let's average those two numbers. 71.26.
For the average bill.
That's combined water system.
Combined waste.
Water and
Both
sewer,
of 'em.
That's the
both of them
combined
together.
bill.
Waste and water.
Really
So
good.
it's not bad.
And now I've got the same data to provide you for your commercial customers. You can see you've only got 808 commercial water accounts. They're using 16,500 gallons a month. Interestingly, look at their winter average. It's almost the same as their year-round average. So that tells you they're not as irrigation intensive as residential. They don't have as many choices that they can make when it's cold. But the rates for them, and you can see I'm basing this based on the size of the meter. You've already got an escalating minimum charge based on the meter size. And I'm gonna jump to the combined impact on a commercial account. Here you go. And we can focus on the top line. Right now, your 15,000 gallon commercial user, combined water sewer, pays a bill of $146.61. I'm proposing that go up by $2.46 for the first rate increase. That's less than 2%. Thereafter, their bill would go up by a little over 3% per year till 2023, when they would hit $170 each month in combined bill. Now this is your cash flow for your system, assuming you adopt these rates and implement these rates over the time period that I've recommended. And what I want to draw your attention to is, and you've got your financial advisor here and he can discuss this further, but you have debt service coverage ratios in your bond covenants. It says, after you pay your expenses, they want you, David, are you working with $1.4 or 1.3 on your coverage?
We're working with
$1.25,
Yeah.
okay. So they want, your banker says, once you pay all your expenses, for every $1 in annual debt you have, they want you to have $1.25 left in your pocket. I'm not going much over the $1.25 here in the rates I'm recommending. In the end, by 2022, 23, you're generating $825,000 a year in surplus. By that time, you're gonna have additional debt. I showed you earlier that your debt is gonna be where it is through 2034, I believe. You don't have any break coming from your debt. It's all pretty new. So what I'm recommending are reasonable rates that will provide surplus cash so that you'll have capacity to borrow more for system growth and repairs over the next 5 years. But we're not recommending rates that'll throw off a bunch of extra cash without a home, without a justified need. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you for allowing me to be of service, and I'm glad to answer questions.
I have a question.
Thanks.
Okay, say for instance, in 2 years, our revenues outweigh our costs. As a board, we're able to just stop the rate increases, correct?
You can, yes. I have clients, I typically recommend a 5-year series, and I have some clients that in year 3 or 4 say, we're way ahead of the game, we grew faster than we anticipated, we're selling more water, we're generating surplus cash. Board, let's take action to bypass year 4 or 5 of the rate increase. That's completely the choice of leadership.
That's good.
Now, I've written the order to where they're automatic, but you just have to take action to deviate from the plan whenever the time comes.
To stop or
To revisit the item.
And the proposed order is in your packets, but that's just a proposed, until your third
Meeting.
hearing and third reading change depending on what board action you take at that final, after the final hearing and final reading of the proposed ordinance. So for now, it's just there for y'all to review and so that the public can also, it's in your packet. So the public can see what it is, but the order that's in your packet includes all of these numbers that are in the rate study that are gonna make available to the public here in your lobby. So residents, the customers that have sought it out, and media have been provided what's in the lobby and it's in the rate study. So all of it has been available. But that is also incorporated in your, the proposed ordinance in the packet.
And Counselor, do we want to brief the board on the other proposed change in the order that I,
You could touch on it since
Yeah.
it's been, it was asked of you to
Yeah.
consider contingencies.
yeah, the other thing that I included in the proposed order language, you had some language in your system rules for the calculation of sewer, which resulted in people getting very, very low sewer bills. It was based on an average 12 months, even if there was zero usage in any of those 12 months. So your sewer bills were artificially low. And so what I'm recommending is a language change that says that the winter average shall be calculated based on the